A strange transmission. The stars were the only companions Alex Walker had known for years. As a freelance space engineer, he drifted from station to station, fixing broken machines and outdated systems. But between jobs, it was just him, his ship, and the vast, cold silence of space. Loneliness wasn't new to him. It was like an old coat he wore without a second thought. One quiet evening, Alex sat in the cockpit of his aging spacecraft, tinkering with an old comms console. It wasn't working properly, not that it mattered much. Who would he even talk to? The galaxy was full of people, sure, but none of them ever stayed long enough to matter. As he tightened a loose screw, the console crackled to life, emitting a faint, otherworldly hum. Strange, Alex muttered. He hadn't activated the console. Suddenly, a voice emerged from the static, a soft, melodic voice that sent shivers down his spine. It wasn't speaking any language he recognized, yet he understood every word. Alex Walker, the voice said, his name rolling off the tongue of the speaker as though it were a cherished secret. "I've been searching for you." Alex froze, his hands hovering over the console. His heart raced. How could anyone know he was here? His ship wasn't broadcasting any signals. His throat went dry as he leaned closer to the screen. Who is this?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. There was a pause, then the voice responded, "My name is Lyra. I am, not like you, but I've been watching your kind for a long time, and I've chosen you." "Chosen me?" Alex repeated, his confusion battling with a growing sense of unease. "For what?" "To end your loneliness," Lyra replied simply, as though it were the most obvious thing in the world. The console flickered, and a faint image appeared, a woman-like figure with luminous skin that shimmered like starlight. Her eyes were large and glowing, filled with a strange mix of intelligence and warmth. She was undeniably alien, yet there was something strikingly familiar about her. Alex couldn't look away. "Why me?" he managed to ask after a long silence. Lyra tilted her head, a gesture that seemed both curious and knowing. "Because I see you, Alex. I feel your isolation. You're surrounded by stars, but none of them truly touch you. I understand that, because I feel the same." Her words hit him like a meteor. He wanted to dismiss them, to call this some elaborate prank or a glitch in the system. But deep down, he knew she was right. He had spent so long convincing himself that loneliness was just part of life, but hearing it said aloud by something else made it impossible to ignore. "What do you want from me?" Alex asked, his voice steadier now, though his mind was still reeling. "I want to meet you," Lyra said, her tone filled with a quiet urgency. "I have coordinates. If you come, I can show you things you've never imagined. I can explain everything. But you must decide quickly. My time is limited." The console began displaying a set of coordinates, glowing faintly on the screen. Alex recognized the location. It was in an uncharted region of a nearby nebula, far from any established trade routes, a place no one would stumble upon by accident. "This has to be a trap," he said, shaking his head. "Why should I trust you?" Lyra's glowing eyes softened. "I cannot force you to believe me, Alex. But think about this. When was the last time someone reached out to you? Not because they needed something, but because they saw you. Truly saw you." The question struck a nerve. Alex's hands hovered over the controls, torn between skepticism and a strange, growing curiosity. The loneliness he had buried deep inside was stirring, whispering that this might be his only chance to feel something different. Something real. Before he could respond, the signal began to fade, Lyra's image flickering like a dying star. "Wait," Alex called out. "If I come, how will I find you?" Her voice grew faint, but her final words were clear. "Follow the light in the nebula. It will guide you. I'll be waiting." And then she was gone. The cockpit was silent once more, save for the hum of the ship's engines. Alex stared at the coordinates on the screen, his mind racing. Every logical part of him screamed to ignore the message, to stay safe and stick to his routine. But another part, the part that dreamed of adventure and connection, begged him to take the risk. With a deep breath, Alex made his decision. He entered the coordinates into the ship's navigation system and initiated the jump sequence. As the stars blurred into streaks of light around him, he felt something he hadn't felt in years, a spark of hope. Whatever lay ahead, he knew one thing for certain: his life was about to change forever. The first encounter. The nebula wasn't like anything Alex had seen before. It wasn't just a swirling cloud of gases and light. It was alive. Pulses of electric blue and deep crimson surged through its vast expanse, like a heartbeat. As Alex's ship entered the outer edges, his instruments went haywire, sensors flickering, readings blurring. It was as if the nebula itself was rejecting his presence. "This is a terrible idea," Alex muttered, gripping the controls tightly. Jasper, his ship's AI, replied in its flat, emotionless tone. "Confirmed. Risk of engine overload, 42%. Navigational reliability, 18%. Recommend immediate retreat." "Noted." Ignoring, Alex shot back, his eyes fixed on the path ahead. His heart raced as he followed the faint trail of light Lyra had mentioned. It wasn't a fixed beam or a flare. It was subtle, like the glow of distant fireflies, leading him deeper into the nebula. Then, through the chaos of colors and static interference, Alex saw it. Hanging in the void like a dream, Lyra's ship came into view. It was unlike any human design, sleek and organic, as though it had been grown rather than built. Its surface shimmered like liquid silver, constantly shifting and reflecting the nebulous hues. Alex's breath caught in his throat. This wasn't just advanced technology, it was art. As he approached, the shimmering surface of the alien ship seemed to react, rippling in response to his presence. A circular opening appeared, beckoning him inside. Every instinct screamed at him to turn back, to retreat to the safety of his old, familiar world. But the memory of Lyra's voice, soft, hopeful, and filled with something he couldn't name, pushed him forward. With a deep breath, Alex docked his ship. The airlock hissed open, and he stepped into Lyra's world. The interior of the ship was as breathtaking as its exterior. Soft, glowing tendrils lined the walls, pulsating with a gentle rhythm. The floor felt alive under his boots, warm and slightly yielding, like stepping on moss. It was eerily quiet, save for a faint hum that seemed to resonate within his chest. "Welcome, Alex." He spun around, heart pounding. Lyra stood before him, more stunning in person than her flickering image had conveyed. Her skin shimmered like moonlight, and her eyes, large and luminescent, held a mix of curiosity and warmth. She wore something that looked like flowing water frozen in motion, a dress that shifted colors with every movement. Alex struggled to find his voice. "Lyra," he managed, his throat dry. This place is incredible." She smiled, a gesture that felt both alien and deeply human. "It's my home. And now, it's yours too, if you'll allow it." Her words sent a ripple of emotion through him, but before he could respond, a sharp mechanical sound broke the moment. The walls of the ship dimmed slightly, and Lyra's expression darkened. "They found us," she said, her voice suddenly tense. "Who?" Alex asked, his hand instinctively reaching for the sidearm strapped to his belt. "My people," Lyra replied, stepping closer to him. "They've been tracking me ever since I sent the transmission to you. They don't understand what I'm doing here." "What are you doing here?" Alex demanded, his voice rising. "You said you wanted to meet me, but why? Why risk everything?" Lyra's glowing eyes locked onto his, her expression softening again. "Because I've seen your world, Alex. I've seen your people. The way you love, the way you connect. It's something my kind has never known. We live in logic, in rules. But I wanted more." And when I saw you, I knew you felt it too." Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Alex's mind raced, torn between disbelief and the strange, undeniable pull he felt toward her. But before he could respond, an alarm blared through the ship. The walls pulsed red, and Lyra turned toward a glowing panel on the wall. "They're closing in," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "We don't have much time." Alex stepped forward, his determination overriding his fear. "Then we fight. Or run. Whatever it takes." Lyra looked at him, surprised. "You do that? For me?" He nodded, his jaw set. "I don't know why you chose me, Lyra. But I'm here now. And I'm not running away." A flicker of something passed across her face. Gratitude, maybe, or something deeper. She placed a hand on his arm, her touch warm and reassuring. "Thank you, Alex." Suddenly, the ship jolted violently. Lyra's voice sharpened. "Get to the controls. I'll guide you." As Alex raced to the cockpit, the alien ship came alive around him, responding to Lyra's commands. He had no idea what he was getting himself into, but one thing was clear. His life, once empty and predictable, was now spiraling into something extraordinary. And he wasn't about to let it slip away. A promise of connection. The cockpit was eerily quiet, save for the soft hum of Lyra's ship as it drifted through the nebula. Outside the viewport, the swirling colors of the cosmic storm created an otherworldly-like show. But inside, Alex felt an unease he couldn't shake. They had escaped, for now, but the tension in the air was palpable. Lyra sat across from him, her luminous eyes fixed on the display in front of her. She was monitoring the space behind them, her expression calm but her hands tense. Alex had so many questions, but the weight of the chase still lingered, and he didn't want to break her concentration. "Are we safe?" he finally asked, his voice low. "For now," Lyra replied, not looking up. "But they won't stop. My people don't leave loose ends." "Loose ends," Alex muttered, leaning back in his chair. "That's what they think you are. That's what they think I am." Lyra turned to him, her gaze softening. "It's not personal, Alex. My people don't hate humans. They just don't understand you. Or me." He frowned. "What's there to understand? You made a choice. Why can't they respect that?" "Because they're not like you," she said simply. "We live by logic, by order. Emotions, feelings, are seen as distractions, weaknesses. For someone like me to reach out to a human, it's considered a betrayal." Alex shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. "So they're hunting you because you're trying to feel something real." Lyra hesitated, then nodded. "I've spent years studying your kind, Alex, watching your broadcasts, your stories, your lives. There's a beauty in the way humans connect, in the way you fight for each other, even when it's messy. I wanted to understand that, to feel it." Her words hung in the air, heavy with emotion. Alex felt a pang of guilt. Here he was, a man who had spent most of his life running from connection, and yet this alien, this incredible, otherworldly being, was risking everything to experience what he had taken for granted. "Why me?" he asked after a moment. "Out of all the humans out there, why did you pick me?" Lyra smiled faintly, her glowing eyes catching the nebula's light. "Because you're not afraid to feel lonely." Alex blinked, caught off guard. "What's that supposed to mean?" "You don't hide from it," she said, her voice soft but certain. "Most people drown their loneliness in noise. Friends, work, distractions. But you face it. You sit with it. That takes strength." Alex wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong, that he wasn't strong, just stubborn, maybe. But something about the way she looked at him made the words catch in his throat. For the first time in years, someone wasn't judging him for his solitude. She was seeing it as something valuable. Lyra leaned closer, her tone shifting. "Alex, I need to ask you something. Something important. "Go ahead," he said, his voice steadier than he felt. Her luminous eyes locked onto his. "Will you trust me?" He frowned. "I trusted you when I came here, didn't I?" "This is different," she said, her voice filled with urgency. "If we're going to stay ahead of my people, we need to leave the nebula and head to a place they won't follow. But it's dangerous. I can't promise you'll be safe." Alex considered her words, the weight of them sinking in. He had already thrown caution to the wind by meeting her, but now she was asking for more, a leap of faith into the unknown. Before he could respond, Lyra reached out, placing her hand over his. Her touch was warm, almost electric, and for a moment, the chaos of the past hours faded away. "I won't force you," she said softly. "But if you come with me, I promise I'll show you a connection unlike anything you've ever known." Alex stared at her, his mind racing. He thought of the empty years he had spent drifting through life, the endless void that had become his companion. And now, here was Lyra, offering him something he had stopped believing in, a chance to truly connect. He tightened his grip on her hand. "I'm in." Lyra's expression brightened, a genuine smile spreading across her face. "Thank you, Alex. You won't regret this." The moment was cut short by a sudden alarm. The ship's walls pulsed with red light, and a sharp mechanical voice filled the air. "Pursuers detected. Hostile proximity. 45 seconds." Lyra's smile faded as she sprang into action, her hands flying across the controls. "They found us." Alex rose from his seat, his heart pounding. "What do we do?" Lyra glanced at him, her eyes blazing with determination. "We fight. The escape." The ship shuddered violently, throwing Alex against the control panel. Sparks erupted from the walls as Lyra's sleek vessel plunged into the dense asteroid field at the heart of the nebula. Behind them, 3 massive ships loomed, their sharp angular designs a stark contrast to Lyra's organic craft. "They're locking weapons," Alex shouted, gripping the edges of his seat as the ship lurched again. "I know." Lyra's voice was sharp but steady, her glowing hands moving with lightning speed over the controls. "Hold on. This is going to get worse before it gets better." Alex opened his mouth to protest, but before he could utter a word, the ship suddenly flipped, its nose diving between 2 colossal asteroids. The pursuing ships struggled to follow, their heavy frames smashing through smaller rocks in their path. One of them clipped an asteroid, sending a cloud of debris cascading into space. "You call this better?" Alex yelled as the ship spun sideways, narrowly avoiding a jagged outcrop of rock. Lyra didn't answer. Her focus was absolute, her eyes glowing brighter with each passing second. Alex noticed something strange. Her hands weren't just touching the controls. They seemed to merge with them, her fingers blending seamlessly into the shimmering surface. It was as if she was becoming one with the ship. "Are you controlling this thing with your mind?" Alex asked, his voice rising with disbelief. Lyra spared him a quick glance, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "My ship is alive, Alex. It listens to me. But right now, it's listening to you too." "Me?" He blinked, bewildered. "You're part of this now," she said, her tone firm but kind. "It responds to emotion, to intent. If you want us to survive, you need to focus." Alex swallowed hard, his pulse pounding. He closed his eyes for a brief moment, trying to push aside the fear clawing at his chest. The ship trembled again, and he forced his eyes open, locking them on Lyra. "What do you need me to do?" "Trust me," she said simply. Before he could respond, the ship jolted violently. A blinding beam of energy from one of the pursuing vessels grazed their side, sending a spray of molten metal into the void. Warning sirens blared, and the walls of the cockpit pulsed red. "Shields are down," Lyra shouted. "We need to lose them. Now." Alex's mind raced. He wasn't a pilot, but he knew his way around ships. "Can't we outrun them?" "Not in open space," Lyra replied. "Their engines are faster, but we have one advantage." "What's that?" Alex asked, bracing himself as the ship dodged another volley of fire. Lyra's smile returned, this time sharper, almost mischievous. They're not as good at improvising as we are. Before Alex could ask what she meant, Lyra tilted the ship into a steep dive, heading straight for the densest part of the asteroid field. The glowing tendrils on the walls pulsed brighter, responding to her commands. The ship twisted and turned with impossible precision, slipping through gaps that seemed too small to navigate. The pursuing ships hesitated for a moment, their pilots clearly wary of the chaotic terrain. But then they followed, their weapons blazing. Alex watched in awe as Lyra guided their vessel through the labyrinth of rocks, her movements fluid and intuitive. "We can't keep this up forever," Alex said, his voice tight. "They're getting closer." Lyra's eyes flashed with determination. "We won't have to." She pressed her hand against a glowing panel, and the ship emitted a high-pitched hum. Alex felt the air around him change, a strange energy buzzing against his skin. He glanced at Lyra, who was now fully connected to the ship, her glowing form almost blending into the cockpit. "What are you doing?" he asked, his voice tinged with both awe and fear. "Giving us a way out," she replied. "But it's risky." "Define risky," Alex muttered, gripping his seat as the hum grew louder. Before Lyra could answer, the ship released a pulse of energy, sending a shockwave rippling through the asteroid field. The pursuing ships faltered, their engines sputtering as the wave disrupted their systems. One of the vessels slammed into an asteroid, exploding in a fiery burst of light. "Now," Lyra shouted, pulling the ship into a sharp turn. "Brace yourself." The ship veered toward a massive asteroid, its surface dotted with glowing blue cracks. Alex's eyes widened as he realized what Lyra was doing. "You're not seriously thinking of." The ship plunged into one of the cracks, the glowing walls of the asteroid swallowing them whole. For a moment, everything went dark. Then, the ship emerged on the other side, the nebulous colors returning in a burst of light. Behind them, the pursuing ships were nowhere to be seen. Alex exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. That was insane. Lyra smiled, her luminous eyes meeting his. And it worked. For the first time since the chase began, Alex allowed himself to relax. He looked at Lyra, a mix of admiration and curiosity filling his gaze. "You're full of surprises, aren't you?" She laughed softly, her glowing form dimming slightly as she stepped away from the controls. "You have no idea." As the ship settled into the calm of open space, Alex felt something stir within him, a spark of excitement, of possibility. He didn't know where this journey would take him, but one thing was clear. It was unlike anything he had ever imagined. Secrets of the planet. The moment the ship breached the planet's atmosphere, Alex felt an overwhelming sense of awe. The world below wasn't just beautiful, it was alive in ways he couldn't comprehend. Rivers of liquid light snaked through dense, emerald forests. Towering crystalline spires pierced the clouds, shimmering like prisms in the sunlight. The air itself seemed to hum with energy, a gentle vibration that Alex could feel in his chest. This place is unbelievable," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Lyra, seated beside him, watched the landscape with an expression Alex couldn't read, part wonder, part fear. "It's more than beautiful," she said quietly. "It's dangerous." Alex tore his gaze from the breathtaking view to look at her. "Dangerous how?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she guided the ship toward a clearing near one of the massive spires. As they descended, Alex noticed strange patterns etched into the ground below. Vast, intricate designs that glowed faintly, like ancient runes. He felt a strange pull toward them, as if the patterns were calling to him. When the ship landed, Lyra stood and motioned for Alex to follow. "Stay close," she said. "And whatever you do, don't touch anything unless I say it's safe." "Great," Alex muttered under his breath. "Nothing like vague warnings to make me feel at ease." The air outside was warm and filled with a faint, sweet scent that Alex couldn't place. The ground beneath his boots felt soft, almost alive, as if the planet itself were breathing. Lyra moved with purpose, leading him toward one of the glowing spires. Up close, the structure was even more impressive. Its surface was smooth and cool, yet it pulsed with light, like a heartbeat. "What is this place?" Alex asked, his voice hushed. Lyra stopped, her hand resting lightly on the spire. "This is an ancient world," she said. "Long before my people became what they are now, we were connected to places like this. These spires, they're remnants of a forgotten time. They hold memories, power, and secrets." Secrets. Alex raised an eyebrow. "What kind of secrets?" Lyra turned to him, her luminous eyes searching his face. "Secrets about the connection between my kind and yours." Alex blinked. "Wait, are you saying your people and humans are connected?" "In ways we don't fully understand," Lyra admitted. "But this planet, this spire, might hold the answers. That's why we're here." As she spoke, the spire began to glow brighter, its light spilling across the clearing. The patterns on the ground reacted, their faint glow intensifying until they formed a web of interconnected lines. Alex felt a strange sensation wash over him, like a current of energy running through his body. "What's happening?" he asked, stepping closer to Lyra. "It's responding to us," she said, her voice tinged with awe. "To you. To me." Alex frowned. "Why me?" Lyra hesitated, then placed a hand on his shoulder. "Because you're human. These spires were designed to interact with your kind as well as mine. Together, we can unlock their power." Before Alex could respond, the ground beneath them trembled. A deep, resonant hum filled the air, and the spire's light flared, projecting a beam into the sky. Images began to form within the beam. Fragmented, blurry scenes of alien worlds, ancient civilizations, and strange figures. Alex could feel the weight of the images pressing against his mind, as if they were trying to tell him something. "This is incredible," he said, his voice barely audible. "It's like it's showing us history." "Not just history," Lyra said, her tone urgent. "A warning." The images shifted, becoming darker, more chaotic. Massive ships loomed in the sky, their weapons raining destruction on a helpless planet. Figures fled in terror as the landscape burned. Alex felt a surge of fear and anger, emotions that weren't entirely his own. "What is this?" he asked, his hands clenching into fists. Lyra's face was pale. "It's what happens when connection is lost, when fear and greed replace understanding. My people abandoned places like this because they feared the emotions it awakened. They chose control over connection, and it led to destruction." The images faded, and the light from the spire dimmed. The hum of the planet quieted, leaving Alex and Lyra standing in silence. Alex's mind raced, the weight of what he had seen settling over him. "This place, it's trying to tell us something," he said. "It's trying to show us what happens if we don't find a way to connect." Lyra nodded, her expression solemn. "And now you understand why my people are hunting us. They don't want these secrets to come to light. They don't want change." Alex stepped closer to her, his voice steady. "Then we can't let them stop us. If this place holds the key to understanding, to connection, we have to protect it." Lyra looked at him, a faint smile breaking through her fear. "You really are different, Alex." He shrugged, a hint of a grin on his face. "I've been told I'm stubborn." Their moment of levity was short-lived. A distant rumble shook the ground, and Lyra's smile vanished. She turned toward the horizon, where the faint outlines of ships were descending through the atmosphere. "They found us," she said, her voice tight. "We need to move. Now." Alex felt a surge of determination as he followed Lyra back toward the ship. The secrets of the planet were more than just history. They were a chance to change the future, and he wasn't about to let them slip away. A choice to fight or surrender. The ship's alarms blared as Alex gripped the control panel, his knuckles white. Outside, the planet's sky was alive with chaos. The enemy fleet had arrived, their sleek, dark ships circling like vultures over the glowing spires. Beams of energy coursed across the atmosphere, lighting up the horizon with bursts of violent color. "They're surrounding us," Alex shouted, his voice barely audible over the rising din. Lyra stood at the center of the cockpit, her glowing form pulsing with the ship's energy. She wasn't panicking, but Alex could see the tension in her luminous eyes. She was calculating, weighing their dwindling options. "We don't have to fight," she said softly, her voice almost drowned out by the alarms. "If I surrender, they'll let you go. You don't have to be a part of this." Alex turned to her, his expression hard. "That's not happening. I didn't come this far to watch you give yourself up." "They won't harm me," she insisted, stepping closer. "But if we resist, they'll destroy us both. They'll destroy the planet. I can't let that happen. And you think giving up will stop them?" Alex snapped. "They're not here to negotiate, Lyra. They're here to erase everything this place stands for. You saw the same images I did." Her gaze faltered, and for a moment, the confident alien warrior he had come to know seemed vulnerable. "I don't want to lose you," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "You won't," Alex said firmly. He placed a hand on her shoulder, meeting her glowing eyes with unwavering determination. "But we can't let them win. Not here. Not now." A sudden jolt shook the ship, throwing Alex off balance. The main display flickered, showing the enemy fleet deploying small, insect-like drones that swarmed toward the spire they had activated earlier. Lyra's eyes widened in alarm. "They're going for the spire," she said, her voice urgent. "If they destroy it, the connection will be lost forever." "Then we stop them," Alex said, already moving toward the weapons console. He had no idea how to operate Lyra's ship, but he wasn't about to let that stop him. Lyra hesitated for only a moment before joining him. "The ship is alive, Alex. It will respond to your intent. Focus on protecting the spire, and it will guide you." He nodded, gripping the unfamiliar controls. Closing his eyes, he let his mind focus on the swirling emotions inside him. Fear, anger, determination. When he opened his eyes, the console glowed brighter, and the ship seemed to hum in response. "Here goes nothing," Alex muttered, activating the ship's weapons. The first volley of plasma fire streaked toward the approaching drones, cutting through their formation like a hot knife through butter. Lyra took control of the navigation, maneuvering the ship with a precision that left Alex in awe. Together, they formed an unspoken rhythm, her movements guiding the ship, his focus driving its attacks. But the enemy wasn't backing down. More drones poured from the fleet, their collective hum vibrating through the ship's walls. One of the larger enemy vessels began descending, its cannons charging with ominous red energy. "They're preparing to fire on the spire," Lyra yelled. Alex's heart raced. "Can we stop them?" "Not with the ship alone," she said, her tone grim. "But the spire, if we can activate its full potential, it might be enough." Alex glanced at her, realization dawning. "You mean the artifact, the one we found in the ruins?" Lyra nodded. "It's a key, Alex, a bridge between your kind and mine. If we use it with the spire, it could amplify its power." "And what happens to us if it works?" he asked. Her hesitation was answer enough. "I don't know," she admitted, "but it's the only chance we have." Another explosion rocked the ship, and Alex made his decision. "Then we do it." They left the cockpit, racing through the glowing corridors of the ship toward the artifact chamber. The pulsating energy of the ship seemed to mirror their urgency, the walls glowing brighter with each step. When they reached the chamber, the artifact was waiting, a crystalline orb that pulsed with a soft, steady light. Lyra hesitated, her hand hovering over the artifact. "Once we activate it, there's no turning back." Alex stepped forward, placing his hand over hers. "We're in this together." She looked at him, Her glowing eyes filled with something deeper than gratitude. Then, with a deep breath, she pressed her hand against the artifact. The orb flared to life, emitting a beam of energy that shot through the ceiling and into the sky. Outside, the spire responded, its light intensifying until it was blinding. The drones faltered, their movements chaotic as the energy disrupted their systems. The enemy fleet began retreating, their ships firing blindly in an attempt to escape the spire's growing power. But inside the ship, Alex and Lyra weren't safe. The artifact's energy surged through the walls, filling the air with an electric charge. Alex felt it coursing through him, a mix of pain and exhilaration that left him gasping. "Lyra," he shouted, but his voice was drowned out by the growing hum. Lyra reached for him, her form glowing brighter than ever. "Hold on to me, Alex. No matter what happens, don't let go." He grabbed her hand, their fingers intertwining as the energy enveloped them. In that moment, Alex felt something he couldn't describe: connection, understanding, a sense of belonging that went beyond words. The last thing he saw before the light consumed them was Lyra's face, her expression filled with hope. A new beginning. When Alex opened his eyes, he wasn't sure if he was alive. The world around him was a blur of light and shadow, swirling together like the remnants of a dream. His body felt weightless, suspended in an endless void. But then, slowly, the world began to take shape. He was standing, not in the cockpit of Lyra's ship, but in the heart of the spire. Its walls were alive with pulsating energy, threads of light connecting in intricate patterns that seemed to stretch into infinity. The artifact hovered in the air before him, its once steady glow now a brilliant blaze of colors that defied description. "Alex." Her voice brought him back to himself. He turned and saw Lyra standing a few steps away. She looked different, not just her glowing, ethereal beauty, but something deeper. Her form shimmered with the same energy as the spire, her presence both solid and fleeting, as if she were caught between two worlds. "Lyra," Alex said, his voice trembling. What happened?" "We did it," she said softly, her eyes searching his. "The spire's energy is awake. The connection is restored." He looked around, trying to process her words. The spire's light pulsed in time with his heartbeat, and he could feel its presence, its awareness. It wasn't just a structure, it was alive. "I can feel it," he said, wonder creeping into his voice. It's speaking to me." Lyra stepped closer, her movements graceful and deliberate. "The spire is a bridge, Alex. It's meant to unite my kind and yours, to share our strengths, our emotions, our understanding. But it needed both of us to unlock it." Her words sent a chill down his spine. He thought back to the images they had seen, the warnings, the destruction, the hope, and the fleet, the others. Lyra's gaze dropped for a moment, a flicker of sadness crossing her face. The spire's energy disrupted their systems. Most of them fled, but some, they didn't survive. Alex swallowed hard. He hadn't wanted bloodshed, even if the fleet had come to destroy them. "What about us?" he asked. "What happens now?" Lyra reached out, her hand brushing against his. "The spire has changed us, Alex. It's bound us to its energy, to each other. We're part of it now. And through us, our people will feel its connection." Her words hit him like a tidal wave. He wasn't just a man anymore. He was part of something far bigger than himself, a link between two species that had spent centuries misunderstanding each other. "But what does that mean?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "For you? For me?" Lyra smiled, a soft, knowing smile that sent warmth through his chest. "It means we have a choice. We can return to the lives we knew, or we can stay here, with the spire, and protect what we've created." Alex stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in. For so long, his life had been defined by solitude, by the vast emptiness of space. But now, standing here with Lyra, he felt something he hadn't thought possible: purpose. "I don't think I can go back," he said finally. "Not after this. Not after everything we've seen." Lyra's smile widened, and for the first time, Alex saw tears in her luminous eyes. "Then we'll stay. Together." The spire's light flared, filling the chamber with a gentle warmth. Alex felt its energy wrap around him, not as a force, but as a presence, a reminder that he wasn't alone anymore. He looked at Lyra, his hand tightening around hers. "What happens next?" he asked. She tilted her head, her gaze filled with hope. "We build something new." Outside the spire, the planet began to change. The rivers of light glowed brighter, their energy spreading across the landscape. The shattered remains of the enemy drones dissolved, absorbed by the planet's living energy. And far above, the stars seemed to burn brighter, as if the universe itself were watching. For the first time in years, Alex felt a sense of peace. The loneliness that had once defined him was gone, replaced by something far greater. He wasn't just a man anymore. He was a bridge, a guardian, and a partner to someone who had risked everything to find him. As the spire's energy pulsed around them, Alex and Lyra stood together, their hands intertwined. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, he wasn't afraid. They had each other, and they had a world worth fighting for. And that, he realized, was more than enough.